Hi everyone, so today I would like to explain Chapter 17, Teaching Language Skills from the Practice of English Language Teaching book by Jeremy Harmer. So let's get started. Skills together. Receptive skills and productive skills feed off each other in a number of ways. What we say or write is heavily influenced by what we hear and see. Our most important information about language comes from this input. Thus, the more we see and listen to input, the more English we acquire, notice, and learn. This input takes many forms. Teacher provide massive language input, as does audio and video material both inside and outside the classroom, whether from TV and radio or from the internet. And here, the figure 1 shows the dynamic relationship between input and output. And then, in order to replicate the natural processes of skill mixing, which we mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, and also because we want to provide maximum learning opportunities for the different students in our classes, it makes sense to integrate these different skills. The first is speaking as preparation and stimulus. Speaking sessions allow the students to investigate their thought and feelings about the topic. Frequently, too, speaking is part of a longer planning sequence. And then text as models, especially where the students are working with genre-focused texts. Written and spoken texts are a vital way of providing models for them to follow. And one of the best ways to having our students write certain kinds of report, for example, is to show them some actual reports and help them to analyze their structure and style when getting students to give spoken directions. And then integrated tasks. Skill integration also happens when students are involved in project work, which may well involve researching through reading or listening, and then speaking and writing. And then uh, language skills and language construction. Work on language skills is often a precursor to work on various aspects of language construction. The following is example to examine the language construction. We could ask our students to find any language constructions which compare different people and then ask them to use this construction to make their own comparisons. We could ask the students to find examples of present tense in the text and say what the difference is between them. We can ask them to find any words that occur before nouns and say what kinds of words they are. And integrating skills and language work. Main effective learning sequence will offer both skill integration and also language study based around a topic or other thematic thread. The activity conducted involves the students in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and as the result, the students have been able to practice a wide range of language ability. And then top-down and bottom-up. A frequent distinction is made between top-down and bottom-up processing. In metaphorical terms, this could be likened to the difference between looking at the forest or instead studying in the individual trees within. In top-down process, the reader gets a general view of the reading and listening passage in some way, absorbing by absorbing the overall picture. And in bottom processing, on the other hand, the reader or listener focus on such things as individual words, phrases, or cohesive devices and achieve understanding by stringing these detailed elements together to build up a whole. And then receptive skills. A typical procedure for getting students to read a written test or listen to a recording involves what we might call in type 1 and type 2 task. You can see in the figure 2 a basic procedure for teaching receptive skills. Type 1 tasks are those where we get the students to read or listen for some general understanding or respond, rather than asking them to pick out details or get involved in a refined search or analysis of the text. And then type 2 tasks On the other hand, are those where we get the students to look at the text in uh, considerably more detail, maybe to prompt more detailed responses, to gather specific information or to analyze language. And then for lead in is where we engage the students with the topic of the reading and we try to activate their schema. And then comprehension or reading task. Once the students are ready to read or listen, we set some kind of comprehension task so that they will read or listen in a general way. And then text-related task. A text-related task is any kind of follow-up activity and might be either a more detailed response to the content or a focus on aspects of language in the text. And then the language issue. This is a specific ways of addressing the problem of language difficulty. First is pre-teaching vocabulary. One way of helping our students is to pre-teach vocabulary that occurs in a reading or listening text. This removes at least some of the barriers to understanding which they are likely to encounter. And then extensive reading and listening. Intensive reading or listening tends to be more concentrated, less relaxed, and often dedicated not so much to pleasure as to achievement of a study goal. Extensive reading and listening frequently take place when students are on their own, whereas intensive reading or listening is often done with the help and intervention of the teacher. And then authenticity. Authentic material is language where no concessions are made to foreign speakers. It is normal, natural language used by competent or native speakers of a language. And sometimes text and the text which accompany them are either far too easy or far too difficult. In order to resolve these problems, we need to use comprehension tasks which promote understanding, and we need to match text and task appropriately. Testing and teaching. The best kind of tasks are those which raise the students' expectation, help them tease out meanings, and provoke an examination of the reading and listening passage. Unlike reading and listening tests, these tasks bring them to a greater understanding of language and text in construction. And then appropriate challenge. When asking our student to read and listen, we want to avoid tasks and tasks that are either far too easy or far too difficult. As with many other language tasks, we want to get the level of challenge right and to make the task difficult but nevertheless achievable. And then we moved into the productive skills. A key factor in the success of productive skills tasks is the way teachers organize them and how they respond to the students' work. This is a basic this is a basic procedure for the teaching of productive skills. The first is let in. In the let in stage, we engage the students with the topic. Perhaps we ask them what they know about a certain subject, and then task. When we set the task, we explain exactly what the students are going to do. And then monitoring. Once the students have started, we will monitor the task. This may mean going around the class, listening to the students working and helping them where they are having difficulties. And then feedback and follow-up. When the activity has finished, we give the task feedback. This is where we may help the students to see how well they have done. And finally, we may move on from the task with the task-related follow-up. And in order to communication to be successful, we have to structure our discourse in such a way that it will be understood by our listeners or readers. In order writing to be successful, it has to be both coherent and cohesive. Coherent writing makes sense because you can follow the sequence of ideas and points. Cohesion is a more technical measure, since it is here that we concentrate on the various linguistic ways of connection ideas across phrases and sentences. This may be chains of reference, where we use language features such as pronouns, lexical repetition, and synonymy to refer to ideas that have already been expressed. Conversational discourse, on the other hand, often appears considerably more chaotic. This partly because it is generally constructed by however many people are taking part. In order for this construction to be successful, the participants need to know how to take turns and what discourse makers. For example, they can use to facilitate the smooth progression from one speaker to the next. And part of our speaking proficiency depends upon our ability to speak differentially, depending upon our audience and upon the way we observe their reactions and respond to them. Part of our writing skill depends upon our ability to change our style and structure to suit the person or people we are writing for. For example, where people are giving lecture, they are likely to adapt the way they are speaking and the words they are using of the basis of audience reaction. And then dealing with difficulty. When speakers or writers of their own or of a foreign language don't know a word or just can't remember it, they may employ some or all of the following strategies to resolve the difficulty. The first is improvising. Speakers sometimes try any word or phrase that they can come up with the hope that it is about right. Such improvisation sometimes work, but they can also obscure meaning. And then discarding. When speakers simply can't find words what they want to say, they may abandon the thought that they can put into words. And then pronouncing. When operating in a foreign language, speakers sometimes choose a words in a language they know well and foreignize it in the hope that it will be equivalent to the meaning they wish to express in the foreign language. And the last is paraphrasing. Speaking sometimes paraphrase, talking about something for cleaning the teeth. If they don't know the word toothbrush, and then what to do about language? Learners engaged in a productive task can become very frustrated when they just don't have the words or the grammar they need to express themselves. There are a number of steps we can take which will help our students achieve success. The first is supply key language. Before we ask our students to take part in a spoken or written activity, we may check their knowledge of key vocabulary and help them with phrases or questions that will be useful the, the task. And then, I'm sorry, I need to look at the part. Okay, so the first is supply key language. Before I will repeat it, okay? Supply key language. Before we ask our student to take part in a spoken or written activity, we may check their knowledge of key vocabulary and help them with phrases or questions that will be useful for the task. And then the second is plan activities in advance. Because of the time lag between our students meeting new language and their ability to use it fluently, we need to plan production activities that will provoke the use of language which they have had a chance to absorb an earlier stage. And then the last is projects. Projects can be organized in a number of different ways, but they generally follow the same sequence. The first is topic choice and briefing. Projects start when the teacher or the students decide on a topic. And then idea and language generation. Once a briefing has taken place, what happens next will depend on how teacher directed the project is. If the students have come up with their own topics, this is where they will start on the process of idea generation. And then data gathering. Students can gather data from a number of sources. They can use internet search engines, consult books, or watch videos. They can design questionnaires in order to interview people. And then planning. When the students have got their ideas, generated some topic specific language, and gathered the data they require, they can start to make a plan of how the final project will be set out. And then drafting and editing. If the project has a final written product, a first draft will be produced consisting either of sections of or the whole thing. And then the last is consultation, or tutorial. Throughout the lifetime of project, teachers will need to be available as tutors, advising, helping, and prompting the students to facilitate progress. Okay, so that's all about chapter 17. Thank you and see you.